most people see it as like this magical, sentient digital being that some people see it as a Terminator Skynet level, and some people are like, it's my best friend that just like knows me and gets stuff done. Both of those are erroneous. And I think anthropomorphizing technology is dangerous for us as humans. When you anthropomorphize technology, then you lose something called digital literacy, which is basically, do you know how to use technology, software, hardware? AI, for those not familiar, it is essentially an algorithm gone wild.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hare. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast. AI is a topic we're covering with increasing frequency here on the podcast. We're always being sold the benefits of this explosive technology, but there are considerations that need to be worked through before implementing AI into your process. Our guest today will help you navigate through this confusing web. Please welcome Sarah Mary Parker. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Sarah, when I think about AI in the industry, really your name is one of the few that come to mind. You've been at the forefront of AI kind of since it got going. You share your knowledge like pretty freely and openly, and you're not out there screaming crazy things about all the things AI will do for you if you just, send you a bunch of money. So
yeah, it'll do your laundry, right? Run your business for you.
I will change your life. Just send me $10,000.
Yeah.
But before we jump into that, I want to kind of get into a little bit about you. So I know you started Parker Public Adjusting like about a decade ago, maybe a little more.
It's our 10-year anniversary. Yeah, 2025. Started in 2015.
Wow. Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
So tell me how you got into storm restoration to begin with.
Yeah, so this is a story that I talk about a lot, and I think it's like a lot of public adjusters. It was completely by accident. So I had a very good friend who had a home fire, and in your line of work, you understand how devastating that can be. But for those that aren't familiar, when you have a house fire, I mean, you not only have your daily life that you're trying to deal with, but now you have coverage that you're looking at. You've probably never read your policy before. So you've got all these overwhelming letters coming to you, like reservation of rights, and you're trying to find, like, how do I select a contractor? There's so many different things to go through. So she was completely overwhelmed. And she got a contractor right away, a mitigation contractor. And, and I was not in insurance at all. I didn't know anything about insurance at this point. And, basically, so I just heard all of her horror stories of working with her insurance company and with her contractor. And then she told me about a public adjuster she had hired. And unfortunately, there were horror stories there too. So her experience was just, really tough in every way. And when I looked into public adjusting, because of course I was like, what is a public adjuster? Like, I thought it sounds like a chiropractor or something, like it's just something in healthcare. No one knows what adjusting means. And I looked into it, and I was looking at, a career change at the time. And I was like, this is different. This is like a blend of the legal world, but then there's insurance in it, and there's construction, which I love. I mean, there's just so many different things. I get to be around, people, which is really important for me in my work, and being of service. So it was a lot of things that appealed to me, and that's how I got into it. Now, the pre-licensing doesn't teach you how to do your job, so of course,
fair.
It takes a bit of time to really, as a professional, really get going and figure out where you're, best of service within public adjusting, because there's so many different focuses that you could go into. But yeah, it was definitely clicked. It was really interesting. So, yeah.
that's not really the normal story, right? Like the
Yeah.
normal story is like I was an insurance adjuster and I thought I could make more money, or I was a roofer and then I decided to do this instead, or like that's a unique story. There's a few pieces to that, and I'm kind of curious, like because it strikes me that you told us a lot about you without telling us a lot about you. You
Hmm.
know, you had a friend go through a really traumatic time.
Yeah.
You heard about a person that was supposed to be her solution that it sounds like was not really her solution.
No,
And so you
unfortunately.
decided to learn about that person's profession to see if that was something that was well suited for you and how you could improve it.
Yes. Yes. I was considering becoming an attorney. There's a lot of different things I was looking at. At the time I hadn't started a business, but I'm from a family of entrepreneurs and I'd had a business before. And so I was kind of looking at, do I want to go into business? It just clicked at the right time, really, for me. So,
What do you think it is about you though that you were like able to take that empathy for your friend and like shift that into a career? Like was there someone in your life that was like an influence that caused you to do that, or some experience
yeah,
you had?
I think the empathy was definitely the hook for me. And then going from that, then it's the intellectual things, right? And then the ability to also run a business with it. So the hook was definitely the empathy piece. I love non nobis solum is part of I don't want to say it's a Latin phrase, but is an excerpt from writings from, I believe, Cicero. Um, and he talks about basically a citizen's duty to your fellows, and it's not for ourselves alone, is what it means. Um, and I'm a Canadian, so I have and I'm an immigrant to the United States, and both Canadian and American values align everywhere, really. And so, being of service to your community is a huge thing. So, within business or my work, that's always been very important to me.
Yeah, and that's that phrase, which is much longer, and we'll actually drop it in the show notes
Much
because
longer, yeah. I'll put the
it
whole,
was something that caught my
yeah.
attention. So of course I looked it up,
It's
and
like
yeah,
no
it's
novi sola nati sumus, and yeah, it goes on.
she knows the whole thing. We know, but I'll drop it in the show notes for anyone that's interested because the literal translation is essentially by serving others you achieve vindication. So essentially, I think the shortened version that you've used in the past is like succeeding to serve, but it's basically like you vindicate yourself by helping others. And I think that's a good moral fiber for like anyone that's in public adjusting or really any storm restoration attorneys, whoever. We could probably do better to live through that. But you have this other quality about entrepreneurs that is so unique, and this is
Oh,
something people don't think about. I remember in 2012 attending some entrepreneurial conference. Our firm had just been selected for the ICIC 100, which was like this award for inner city businesses that were growing. So we went up to Boston, and this is at my last law firm, and they put up something. I know he's like either everyone's favorite or everyone's least favorite person right now, but they put up something from Elon Musk where he was like, he basically was having to deal with this commute from LA to Silicon Valley all the time, right? And it was like
that's
frustrating
crazy.
to him. So that's how the Hyperloop even became an idea, was because, and what he said was, what the lady that was doing the presentation said is entrepreneurs tend to identify the problems that make their lives harder and then create the solution for those problems, or find
Yes.
someone to create the solution for those problems. Like,
Hmm.
so interesting, right? Like a multi-billion-dollar company, which later would partially contribute to SpaceX with like the highest technology,
Yeah.
because this guy hated his commute.
Hmm.
Like he didn't want to sit in
Yes.
traffic for a few hours. So he was like, someone should invent a faster way to travel. It's wild.
Yes. Yes. And
And
that,
that's what
yeah.
you've done, like not just once, but multiple times, because
Yeah,
you
more than one
also,
business now. Yeah.
yeah, you have more than one business. And look,
Yeah.
frankly, two businesses that industry wise, they're kind of a pain in the butt to run. So you also have a media company,
Hmm.
um,
Yes.
which I'm assuming you were solving a problem you had.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. So I grew up in public relations. I'll just give you the background of why I would even think that I could start a media agency in the first place. And there are different kinds of agencies too, for the small business owners out there, for the brand managers. COOs. There are different kinds of agencies for different kinds of things. So it's very important to know that not every agency is a marketing agency, and that they all have different purposes for your goals. So something to think about. But basically, as a public insurance adjuster, we have some interesting challenges when it comes to marketing and advertising. And those are kind of two different things, but advertising is within marketing. And with kind of explaining what on earth we do and communicating to clients, like, we solve your problems, we fix claim problems, right? And I wasted a lot of money working with marketing companies to, try to get the graphics, the verbiage, the digital channels, direct mailing, all of those things. And no one could translate what we actually do as public insurance adjusters into proper marketing copy that isn't maximize your claim. I hate that. That isn't, we're against your insurance company. That's an awful way to sell. You should never sell your services by simply saying we're better than this bad thing. And to, basically say an insurance company is bad it's an awful way to sell, and it's not fair. We settle claim disputes when they come up, regardless of the carrier or the policyholder, But since I grew up in public relations, when we emigrated to the States, my mom started a PR firm. And so that's what I grew up in. I grew up in TV stations, grew up, doing radio spots and stuff like that. There's even a company that's local to us that still uses the slogan that I came up with when I was 4 years old, because that brick and mortar company was my mother's client at the time. So that's what I grew up in. High quality, high stakes, you do it right, right? And then as a public adjuster, I'm just running into all these marketing companies that would love my money, but they don't produce quality. And so that's why I started Kuva Media, is to solve my own problem. So I tested everything on my company first, and then other people were like, hey, who did that for you? And then I was like, I guess I have a company. Here we go. I'll solve your problems too. Let's go.
Isn't that one of the best ways to grow a business, though? You fix your own problem, you get really good at it, and then you say, okay, well, now all we're talking about is how to charge people. We're not. I've created the car. Now I just need to have a delivery mechanism, and
absolutely.
And I watched this company launch like before my eyes, because you launched it, and we're all on these like different messenger groups and boards and stuff. So like I saw this happen, and it was so cool to see.
Oh, thank you.
I know initially like one or two people were like, yeah, and then later, like, now someone posts, oh, like, who do you get to do your website? And like 17 people will be like, oh, you have to call her. You have to call her.
Yeah, we don't target law firms and public adjusters and things like that, but they certainly work with us, and we're very thankful to deliver that to a lot of companies nationwide.
That is awesome. So you've got these two worlds. You've got, we'll call it agency, but a lot of it's like marketing and media work. And then you've got public adjusting. And then you've got this like overarching, like insatiable interest in emerging tech. Right. Which I've been watching again for years now online. So let's talk about the new shiny tech toy, right? AI.
Oh my gosh, AI. Oh man, yeah. Oh my gosh. I think the first thing we could do is just demystify it. Like, I feel like, it's kind of a buzzword, which is, it's not a negative thing to have something new and exciting. But we don't know what it is. Just like you and I deal with contracts in our work, and an insurance policy to most people means the warm and fuzzy piece of paper that protects you and takes care of you. But we see it, we're like, oh, no, that's a contract. It has exclusions, it has duties, it has consideration. We look at it completely differently, but we understand it. And so we're not scared of it. We love policies. And AI is kind of the same. Most people see it as like this magical, sentient digital being that some people see it as a Terminator Skynet level, and some people are like, it's my best friend that just like knows me and gets stuff done. Both of those are erroneous. And I think anthropomorphizing technology is dangerous for us as humans. So what we're coming up against here is when you anthropomorphize technology, then you lose something called digital literacy, um, which is basically, do you know how to use technology, software, hardware? Do you know commonalities between them, that kind of thing. So risks, when and where to use them, privacy. So AI, for those not familiar, it is essentially an algorithm gone wild. They actually can't control it. It's really cool and really scary, but it's not. So most software programs are something like a database. And a database is basically a fancy version of an Excel spreadsheet. You can see what's in there. It has entries, it has like name, username, email address, all of that stuff. So very simplified, that's what a database is. That's not AI. AI, you can't actually go in and see what it knows. It's very interesting. So that's a very simplified version. And it is not sentient. It is not aware of it itself. It is not alive. So people might want to fight on me on that, and I will fight you on that. It's not alive or sentient. It is a wonderful tool. And knowing the limitations and abilities of that tool will guide you better than just jumping into the hype, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I think the digital literacy point is really interesting to make here, right? I personally feel, without insulting anyone, because I love this industry, but I do think the restoration and insurance industries, on the policyholder side, I don't want to say on the carrier side because that would not be true, have relatively low digital literacy rates.
Yes. And I know a couple reasons for that too.
That's what I'd like to know, what you feel those reasons are.
Because I'm with you too. Like, I don't want to be like, you guys are just such dinosaurs. That's not our point here. But it's for two reasons, I think. Is one, that because it is an intellectual service-based business, it really is. We're using our minds. And the technology is catching up with being able to assist us in things like sentiment analysis, making opinions, analyzing data. It's helping. At the end of the day, it takes intelligence. That's why it is a profession, public adjusting. That's why being an attorney is a profession in the actual definition of one, and why it's licensed. Is because it does take some level of cognitive excellence and experience. So with that, we kind of don't have the technology to shift our actual work off onto. Not that we should. But to assist us with, it's just starting to kind of come into view. And then two, it's also just not sold to us. So other industries, software companies are throwing themselves at your company, just like, please buy us. We've created this tool for this industry that has, 50 million businesses, but we are a niche industry. So a lot of software developers don't know we exist. So I think that's part of it as well, is one, the technology is not there necessarily. And two, because it's not sold to us and thrown at us, we don't get the education that other industries do through sales outreach from those companies. That's what I think. That's my theory.
I agree. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I think, and the reason I kind of couched my statement at the beginning is the insurance companies are using so many digital products, not just AI, but definitely AI. And they are using them at breakneck speed. You can see things changing, like even on the pre-lit side, which we don't do a lot of pre-lit because our preference usually is that the policyholder resolves their claim, either with an adjuster or an appraiser or someone before they jump to a lawyer. But even on the pre-lit side, we're seeing carriers respond to letters that took us quite a while to put together that were well thought out within 5 minutes. Well, I know what you're doing. Okay. Like, I know what you're doing, which is Allstate admitted to it, but you have machines that literally say, figure out a way to deny this letter, Okay, great. Here it is. And they're not even checking for things like hallucinations and things like that.
No, we should definitely talk about hallucination rates a bit later. We get into risks and benefits.
Well, and let's kind of jump into that. So, knowing that these days, I think there are a lot of people that don't understand what AI is, but they know what some of the AI products are, right?
Yeah.
So what do you see as like, if I'm a public adjuster and I've got an agency, what do you see as like AI possibilities for me now, like accessibly, without being
Yeah.
at like the upper echelon of digital literacy and understanding AI?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have some great news for everyone. The accessibility and affordability of AI products, it's great right now. So that's the wonderful news, is that you don't have to be a computer programmer, you don't have to shell out $200,000 to train your own AI model, all those things. There's a lot of accessible technology out there right now for AI. Um, so I'll kind of explain the differences between the types of AI products and then where you would consider putting them in your business as far as like operations or sales or whatever that looks
Mm.
like. So as far as the types, you have some different types of AI. So just like we can see, we can smell, we can hear, we have different senses, AI can attend to different things in the way that it can interact with an interface. So it can do analysis of images, of text. It can create images and text, what we call generative. And most AI is not actually generative. It doesn't create anything. It rearranges data it was given. So I just want to make that clear too. With you don't want to anthropomorphize, AI because it's not sentient. It's also not actually generative. It can only use the data it was given, which attorneys pay attention to that. We could talk about that later and why that's going to matter in litigation when it comes to AI tools used in claims. But yeah, essentially there's different types of AI. So most people will be familiar with ChatGPT. That is called an LLM, which is a large language model. And that's the chat interface that most of us are used to using it. There's different ways that you can use that technology, also through something called APIs, which are very simply connects programs through the internet. So ChatGPT by the company called OpenAI is going to be the one that you're most familiar with. That's an LLM. There's also different ones like Claude from Anthropic. You can find a lot of models on something called Hugging Face, which is more for developers, but lots of open source AI models there. So you've got LLM that's primarily text-based, and it can also do image generation, things like that. And you can interact with it that way. Then you'll also have models that, and ChatGPT can do this now too. It can take audio, transcribe it. I mean, there's so many different things. So I'd say for beginners, I would start out with either ChatGPT or Claude, but with this caveat, be careful about what information you put into it. Just like we had touched on earlier, you can't actually delete data from AI because it's an algorithm. It is not a database. So if you are using AI with client data, there are ways to use it compliantly, but it takes some extra safeguards rather than just using the API. So something to think about. You guys can always ask me questions after this too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I
Yeah,
was going to say law firms make this mistake. I've seen it.
yeah.
And we'll get into hallucinations in a bit, but even aside from that, they feed in a bunch of information that might be subject to a protective order or something like that into ChatGPT, and now ChatGPT has that knowledge.
And ChatGPT spits it out sometimes. That's how we know.
To other people, yeah.
Yeah, just
and the question is like, the question becomes, well, will that ever come out that they did that or not? Maybe not, right? It's just kind of in there, and the right person that knows that that was subject to a protective order would have to get the response from ChatGPT that's like, wait, how does it know that, right? So there's a lot of like ifs and loops.
That's where our ethics and our ethos and our foundation guide us. So there might not be a big bad guy that's gonna, come thumping on your door, but it's up to you to be the one to set that ethics threshold for yourself and your firms.
Well, and that's the interesting part, right? So let's jump to that. We'll come back to hallucinations and stuff, because that for me has been a big issue. It's like AI is happening. Like no one can stop it, right? So
it's not
we're
going
so
back
far
in
past
the box. Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, no.
It's
doing too much. It's made too many people too much money. So we're so far past that like argument of should we even have computers that do these things, right?
Yeah.
You exactly. And then you get the Skynet argument, right? Like this is how Terminator started. Look, this is what we're doing. I mean, the obvious answer as well. let's definitely not teach AI to build robots stronger than us. That would be a bad idea. But
Too late.
but no, but no, really, like, what do you think
Yeah.
if someone comes to you and they say, look, I want to use AI, but
Mhm.
like, but maybe I have a handful of employees, maybe enough that I can monitor, but I can't monitor them 24/7.
Yeah.
What kind of ethics do I need to be worried about as I work AI into my business?
So I think the easiest place to start is because, what's that saying? Laws are the floor of ethics. So let's start at the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Regulation. So as far as regulation goes, I'll speak both to attorneys and to public adjusters here. Because it's an easy one. For attorneys, obviously you guys have your attorney-client privilege. You have different rules and regulations that you guys need to follow that I feel are like almost HIPAA-like, right? Like you need to protect that data. So that's one set of regulations that are the floor and easy to guide you. And then public adjusters, in many states now we have something called data breach reporting laws because we have had, oh my gosh, so many data breaches. So I track all of this stuff. If you guys want to talk to me about it, I'll let you know. But so many data breaches, and so much data is collected now as well, including the one that happened last year where it was some millions of social security numbers were leaked because a data broker um, literally published the freaking password to their database on their website. That's how it got
Mm.
hacked. It's crazy. So just thinking about that, and knowing that we have data breach reporting laws now, which attorneys would be subject to, like this is general business stuff. At least 13 U.S. states have, that I'm aware of, have active privacy laws now too. And then some have also cybersecurity laws as well for businesses. So it's important to know for your state or states that you're working in what your regulations are for privacy. That's a starting point. That's a starting guide. And from there, it's just looking at data, right? Data is gold right now. If you had the Industrial Revolution, you had different changes where different things were valuable. Right now, it is data. So every software company you are coming in contact with, you have to understand that a lot of software companies have a separate business revenue model of selling user data. So the best way to look at that is just like you would read your insurance policy, read the privacy policy of all of the software that you use. Now, up until all of these state privacy laws were coming into play, most of those are pretty convoluted. It was just like, we will use our data with our partners for legitimate use. You're like, cool, that means nothing. But now with state laws, they have to be much more specific about this is, what data we collect. This is how we use that data, and this is who we share that data with, and this is how long we hold on to that data. So reading the privacy policies, being aware of that, if you're looking at this from a risk management standpoint of running a business and being compliant for your professional rules, that's a great place to start. And
That's
most
a
people don't think
fantastic
of it.
place to start.
Yeah, and it's
But
like that's like a contract of adhesion as well. Those terms of
yeah,
use and
you can't
privacy
negotiate
policy.
it. It's what they're
No.
going to do. So what you're saying though, like,
Mm-hmm.
to just be super clear with all the listeners, is that privacy disclosure that you just click through and say I accept every time without reading?
Yeah.
She's saying read it.
Read it,
She's saying
please.
read it. So you
Yes.
know what's actually happening. So unfortunately, you are actually going to need, in order to even start to approach using these things ethically in our professions, you are
Mm-hmm.
going to have to slow down, read it, and then think to yourself, am I okay with this? Is this okay? How will my customers feel about this?
Yeah, just think if it was your data, you know? And the thing is it's not so much like, is some evil boogeyman looking at the data? It's like, no, it's literally being sold to other parties. That's the issue. So one issue, and this is a little bit dark. I'm just gonna give you a trigger warning here. Um, the reason why I use the term risk management standpoint is because you can't always trust software to follow their own privacy policy or terms of use that they've given you. Just like you see a lot of surprises in the claims process, even though your policy may say one thing, sometimes the coverage decisions from the carrier might be more restrictive than what the policy affords. it's kind of the same thing with this. So it's risk management here. This is not legal advice, by the way. I'm just saying this is the mindset to look at. For example, this is a very dark example. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of the National Suicide Hotline that people can dial. It is funded by the federal government. Unfortunately, they've shared user data. And it was through loopholes. One, because the actual centers, they're regional, they're run by private parties, even though it's funded by the government. Two, the people administering the care, it's not actually classified as healthcare, and they are not licensed therapists. They're unlicensed just counselors, which has no professional threshold. So legally, they weren't providing healthcare, which means they were not under HIPAA laws, which means they were even doing things like selling Facebook the data. So if you clicked, security researchers found if you clicked a button on the National Suicide Hotline website, that it would send that data to Facebook for retargeting, and Facebook can sell that data as well. They were having, people could listen in on crisis calls. They had an open program for that, where researchers and academics, and they didn't tell the person who's calling in crisis that someone was listening on the line. They're giving the data to law enforcement, so people who were of no harm to themselves, perhaps a family member was calling to just be inquisitive, like, if my family member got sicker, what should we do? They were sharing that information with law enforcement, who were kidnapping people out of their homes, essentially, putting them in straitjackets and throwing them in the mental ward. So this is a very extreme, horrible example, but unfortunately it is not uncommon as far as the fact that the data is shared. So being aware of how the data is used is incredibly important, especially because we can't always trust, if they're doing what they say they're supposed to do. Isn't that crazy? It's a little dark, but...
It's wild. And it's so true. And, it's... And we're just scratching the surface. In fact, we've teased we're going to cover 2-3 more topics. We're literally, this has flown by because we're literally out of time.
Oh my gosh.
Which is wild. So we'll figure that out. I will say this, doing more of as you guys know, usually I just kind of ask my last question and we close up. But I want to say this, you can catch Sarah at so many events, and her talks are not 30 minutes usually, they're quite longer, and then you can usually find her in the hallway. Yeah, I know. At least you're well respected for it, right? And then you can usually find her in the hallway talking more about these things. And then she's a treasure trove of information, as you can tell, because we've only skimmed it. So to sum up, because we can't possibly sum up all this.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There are AI tools available to you. We have not even skimmed the surface, but they do exist. But work on digital literacy, guys. Work on making sure that you understand what's out there, how it is, and then start thinking about who you are as a human, what you want your company to be as a reflection of who you are as a human, and make sure you're ethically working in your technology in a way where you would be proud to say it's what you do.
And don't trust the AI salesmen either. They often don't know what they're selling, so it's up to you to be informed about what you're purchasing.
Amen. I'm sorry we only covered some of those, but good news is we get you for another episode.
Too. We went over.
Oh no, we get you for another episode, so I'm pumped. But before you do go, why don't you tell us what it means to you to level up?
It's interesting. I use this phrase a lot personally. Those of you that have, are kind of in my circle where we talk about my masterminds, that kind of thing. Leveling up to me is really, sometimes you have little level ups and big jumps. And for me, it's a lot of awareness. If you've gained any awareness of a situation or yourself, or you've learned something, that is leveling up in a way. But leveling up is to me something that always needs to be internal. It needs to be about you. It doesn't need, just don't worry about anything external. Don't, what's the phrase? Keep up with the Joneses. You need to figure yourself out. No one is going to do that for you. And having agency and making decisions, to me, is the only way that you're able to level up. And when you hit that level of awareness that you have agency and can make decisions in your life to get to the goals that you want, that's leveling up. And you will always continue to grow that awareness, because it's never perfect. We're always growing and always learning more, at least I am. But yeah, I think the biggest level up that someone can do for themselves if they're searching is agency. Always be thinking about agency. If you're not making a decision about something, someone else is making that decision for you. So just paying attention.
I love that. Sarah Mary Parker, the woman, the legend, not the myth, because she is a sentient being.
I am real, not AI. I've heard that. Heard that before.
Thank you so much for joining us. I can't tell you how much that means to us.
It. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Oh my gosh. And to you as well, it's absolutely an honor to be on the podcast with you. And you as well, you're always sharing things with people and, leveling up the industry, as you say. And one thing that I think is important about leveling up is bringing people with you. And you do that. You take your people with you. So.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Sarah Mary Parker for joining us on this show. So many interesting things, but I feel like we only scratched the surface on AI. So don't worry, we'll definitely cover more. So what should you take away? AI is accessible and affordable, and it's never been so accessible and affordable. But first, work on digital literacy and make sure you're reading your agreements and you're protecting your customers. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player.